The 21st month of my imprisonment is well on its way. My friends took it for granted that I would write and produce another book. It is true that the East, or at any rate that part of it which is called India, has been enamored of thinking, often thinking about matters which to those who consider themselves practical men seem absurd and pointless. She has always honored thought and the men of thought, and refused to consider the men of the sword or possessors of money as superior to them. Even in her days of degradation, she has clung to the thought and found some comfort in it. Even today, in this money age, the influence of this tradition is marked, and because of it, Gandhiji, who is not a Brahmin, can become the supreme leader of India and move the hearts of millions without force or compulsion or official position or possession of money. Perhaps this is as good a test as any of the nation's cultural background and its conscious or subconscious objective. To what kind of leader does it give its allegiance? From these dim beginnings of long ago flow out the rivers of Indian thought and philosophy, of Indian life and culture and literature, ever widening and increasing in volume, and sometimes flooding the land with their rich deposits. India is like some ancient palimpsest on which layer upon layer of thought and reverie had been inscribed, and yet no succeeding layer had completely hidden or erased what had been written previously. All of these existed in our conscious and subconscious selves, though we may not have been aware of them, and they had gone to build up the complex and mysterious personality of India. During this enormous span of years, they changed their courses sometimes, and even appeared to shrivel up, yet they preserved their essential identity. In India, we find during every period when her civilization bloomed an intense joy in life and nature, a pleasure in the act of living. It is inconceivable that a culture or view of life based on otherworldliness or world worthlessness could have produced all these manifestations of vigorous and varied life. Indeed, it should be obvious that any culture that was basically otherworldly could not have carried on for thousands of years. We can never forget the ideas that have moved our race, the dreams of the Indian people through the ages, the wisdom of the ancients, their toleration of ways other than theirs, their capacity to absorb other peoples and their cultural accomplishments, to synthesize them and develop a varied and mixed culture. We will never forget them or cease to take pride in that noble heritage of ours. If India forgets them, She will no longer remain India, and her joy and pride will cease to be. War has ended in Europe and Asia. The atom bomb became the symbol of the new age. The use of this bomb and the tortuous ways of power politics brought further disillusion. The old imperialisms still functioned. June 15, Friday, 8 a.m. 10 minutes ago, we were informed that we were unconditionally released. I came from the long seclusion of prison to crowds and intense activity. The Viceroy called a conference of the Indian leaders at Simla to consider the formation of an interim government consisting of representatives of the main communities and equal proportions of what was termed caste Hindus and Muslims. Six days ago, my colleagues and I sat on the chairs of high office in the government of India. It is with no joy in my heart that I commend these proposals to you, though I have no doubt in my mind that this is the right course. For generations we have dreamt and struggled for a free and independent, united India, but we failed in finding a solution to the communal problem agreeable to all parties concerned, and certainly we must share the blame as we have to shoulder the consequences of this failure. During the past 5 years, the Muslim League has had a clear field in India. The Congress was almost continually under ban and in prison. We have thus had no approach to the Muslim masses, and they have been fed with lies both by the League and government propagandists. Mahatma Gandhi, while opposed to partition, proposed a form of self-determination whereby in the Muslim majority provinces, both Muslims and Hindus would vote on the issue of separation. Jinnah insisted that Muslims alone should vote on the question of separation, and that separation should be effected while the British were in India and not after India had become free. On that auspicious Vijayadashmi day took place the inauspicious ending of the Gandhi-Jinnah talks. The British government has to decide once and for all its policy in regard to this matter. It can no longer sit on the fence. It cannot force Pakistan on India in the form demanded by Jinnah, for that certainly will lead to civil war. The Muslim League launched a direct action day on August 16, 1946, with an immediate demand for Pakistan. Our hearts were heavy with the terrible tragedy of Calcutta, and because of the insensate strife of brother against brother. The freedom we had envisaged and for which we had labored through generations of trial and suffering was for the people of India and not for one group or class or the followers of one religion. I am personally against the idea of division of the country, but if a representative election of the areas wish to separate themselves from India, then I shall agree to their going. It is obvious, if there is a regular partition, the different parts of India will have to cooperate with each other in 100 different ways.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny And now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. A moment comes, which comes but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends, and when the soul of a nation, long suppressed, finds utterance. It is fitting that at this solemn moment we take the pledge of dedication to the service of India and her people and to the still larger cause of humanity.
The battle of our freedom is fought and won, but another battle no less important than what we have won still faces us. It is a battle with no outside enemy. It is a battle with our own self. In the Punjab, in both east and west, there was disaster and sorrow. There was murder and arson and looting in many places, and streams of refugees poured out from one place to another. Our foundations have been shaken, and our standards seem to have disappeared. I cannot think of the people in Pakistan as strangers. They have been our countrymen, and neither they nor we can rid ourselves of the past or forget our close kinship. I can assure the people of Pakistan that India has no aggressive designs against any country, least of all against Pakistan. We want Pakistan to live in peace and to progress and to have the closest ties with us. There never will be aggression from our side. Friends and fellow Asians, what has brought you, the men and women of Asia, here? Why have you come from various countries of this mother continent of ours and gathered together in this ancient city of Delhi? Asia, after a long period of quiescence, has suddenly become important again in world affairs. It was here that civilization began, and man started on his unending adventure of life. Here the mind of man searched unceasingly for truth, and the spirit of man shone out like a beacon which lighted up the whole world. This dynamic Asia, from which great streams of culture flowed in all directions, gradually became static and unchanging. A change is coming over the scene now, and Asia is again finding herself. There are powerful creative impulses and a new vitality in all the people of Asia. The masses are awake and they demand their heritage. Strong winds are blowing all over Asia. Let us not be afraid of them, but rather welcome them, for only with their help can we build the new Asia of our dreams. The dawn of its newly acquired freedom is turbulent, because during these past 2 centuries, its growth was arrested, frustration was widespread, and new forces appeared. These forces were essentially nationalist, seeking political freedom, but behind them was the vital urge for bettering the economic conditions of the masses of the people. The remedy is to accelerate the advent of freedom and to remove the poverty. If this is achieved, Asia will become a powerful factor for stability and peace. October 1947. Considerable parts of the Jammu and Kashmir state have been overrun by raiders from outside, well armed and well equipped, and they have sacked and looted the towns and villages and put many of the inhabitants to the sword. Frightfulness suddenly descended upon this lovely and peaceful country. To be fighting side by side with the people of Kashmir against fanatic hordes was a heartening experience which set aside for the moment the memories of communal strife and partition. I trust in this defense we shall give a demonstration to all India and to the world how we can function unitedly and in a non-communal way in Kashmir. In this way, this terrible crisis in Kashmir may well lead to a healing of the deep wounds which India has suffered in recent months. The world of today has achieved much, but for all its declared love for humanity, it has based itself far more on hatred and violence than on the virtues that make man human. Not mere killing, for man must die, but the deliberate and persistent propagation of hatred and falsehood, which gradually become the normal habits of the people. It is dangerous and harmful to be guided in our life's course by hatreds and aversions, for they are wasteful of energy and limit and twist the mind and prevent it from perceiving the truth. This little man of poor physique had something of steel in him, something rock-like, which did not lack physical powers, however great they might be. His calm, deep eyes would hold one and gently probe into the depth. His voice, clear and limpid, would purr its way into the heart and evoke an emotional response. His language was always simple and to the point. A man of the keenest intellect, of fine feeling and good taste, wide vision, very humane, and yet essentially an ascetic who had suppressed his passion and emotions, sublimated them and directed them in the spiritual channel. A tremendous personality, drawing people to himself like a magnet and calling out fierce loyalty and attachments, and this so utterly unlike a peasant. And yet withal, he is the great peasant, with a peasant blindness to some aspects of life. Friends and comrades, the light has gone out of our lives and there is darkness everywhere. Our beloved leader, Bapu as we call him, the father of the nation, is no more. We will not run to him for advice and seek solace from him. And that is a terrible blow, not to me only, but to millions and millions in this country. A madman has put an end to his life, for I can only call him mad who did it, and yet there has been enough poison spread in this country during the past years and months, and this poison has had an effect on people's minds. We must face this poison. We must root out this poison, and we must face all the perils that encompass us, and face them not madly or badly, but rather in the way that our beloved teacher taught us to face them. We, the people of India, have solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, political, and equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give ourselves this Constitution. Our Constitution is an expression of the democratic urge. The Constitution embodies fundamental rights and directive principles of policy which assure many types of freedom. Our state is a secular state which gives equal opportunity to every group, every part of the country, every state, province and area. It is not enough to talk of political unity. We must have emotional unity which does away with provincial barriers, with caste barriers, or communal or religious barriers. We stand for democracy and for socialism, not necessarily in any doctrinaire sense, but in the sense that we stand for some basic principles of socialism. We say that our aim is a socialist pattern of society, something which affects the whole community, helps all the people in the country to raise their level of living and reduce the big differences that may exist. Today there is in India a certain vulgarity about the difference in people's standards. There are the very well-to-do and the very poor. It is inherent in the circumstances. You cannot get rid of that by simply cutting off the heads of the tall people. You want people to grow. You do not want to shorten all of them. The basic thing, I believe, is that wrong means will not lead to right results. And that is no longer merely an ethical doctrine, but a practical proposition. Thus, violence cannot possibly lead today to a solution of any major problems, because violence has become much too terrible and destructive. The question arises as to what our ultimate objective should be. Democracy and socialism are means to an end, and not the end itself. We talk of the good of society. Is this something apart from transcending the good of the individual composing it? The law of life should not be competition or acquisitiveness, but cooperation. The good of each contributing to the good of all. Production today is the first priority. But production by itself is not enough, for this may lead to an even greater concentration of wealth in a few hands, which comes in the way of progress, and which, in the context of today, produces instability and conflict. Therefore, fair and equitable distribution is essential for any solution of the problem. A proper land policy is essential for the progress of agriculture. We have gone some way towards achieving this by putting an end to the zamindari and jagirdari systems in many states. We must complete this task, eliminate all intermediaries, and fix a limit for the size of holdings. But the main object of land reforms is a deeper one. They are meant to break up the old class structure of a society that is stagnant. The main plan is a big one, embracing innumerable activities in the country. But far bigger is the vision which draws us forward, a vision inspired by courage and hope and reasoned optimism. Let us have faith in our country and ourselves. Above all, the plan is a program of work. Let us all become partners in this great enterprise of building a new India. As I walked round the site, I thought that these days the biggest temple and mosque and gurdwara is a place where man works for the good of mankind. Which place can be greater than this? This Bhakra Nangal, where thousands and lakhs of men have worked, have shed their blood and sweat, and laid down their lives as well. Where can be a greater and holier place than this, which we can regard as higher? So far as we are concerned, we are definitely committed to encouraging science and technology, encouraging it not only in its various technical fields, but to build up the scientific temper, a scientific approach to life's problems. One of the biggest things that we have done since independence is the development of our magnificent national laboratories all over India. If we had done nothing else during the last 5 years but the development of these laboratories, we would have had some reason to take credit for our achievement.
I want my country to be strong. And I want the strength of my country is going to be, apart from economic health and progress, the unity of my country and self-reliance in my country.
Our object is to arrive at a stage when we do not depend upon outside countries for any kind of help, whether financial or mechanical. That is what is called, broadly speaking, the take-off stage. It is curious that only about 3 or 4 years ago, people talked rather vaguely about using atomic energy for power purposes. Formerly, the thought that it could be used for civil purposes was a kind of mental adventure. Now it is recognized that it is an economic proposition. It is clear that in the final analysis, it is the quality of the human beings that counts. We have to remember always that it is right education and good health that will lay the foundation for economic as well as cultural and spiritual progress. In the old days, the arts in India were encouraged more especially by the ruling princes and rich patrons. Now, the state has to encourage them. The state should help an academy or association, but should leave it free to function as it likes. That is broadly the policy we follow in regard to the Central Arts Academies.
And now the time has come for me to go away for some weeks from India and to bid you farewell for a while. I have received a large number of messages of good wishes on the eve of my departure. Those good wishes I shall carry with me, and they shall keep me in good heart. Perhaps it is a good thing that for 5 weeks or so you will not be troubled by my speeches and broadcasts. And so, goodbye to you for a while, and may good fortune rest with you. Jai Hind.
India may be new to world politics, and her military strength insignificant in comparison with that of the giants of our epoch. But India is old in thought and experience, and has traveled through trackless centuries in the adventure of life. Throughout her long history, she has stood for peace, and every prayer that an Indian raises ends with an invocation to peace. It was out of this ancient and young India that Mahatma Gandhi arose, and he taught us a technique of action that was peaceful. Yet it was effective and yielded results that led us not only to freedom, but to friendship with those with whom we were till yesterday in conflict. This is the basis and the goal of our foreign policy. We are neither blind to reality, nor do we propose to acquiesce in any challenge to man's freedom, from whatever quarter it may come. Where freedom is menaced, or justice threatened, or where aggression takes place, we cannot be and shall not be neutral. What we plead for and endeavor to practice in our own imperfect way is a binding faith in peace and an unfailing endeavor of thought and action to ensure it. This concept of coexistence is thus basic to Indian thinking.
Our own country is full of its own problems, more particularly to give a better life to all our innumerable people. And that can only be done if there is peace. And so for us, peace is a passion. Not only a passion, but something that all our logic and mind drives us to as essential for our growth.
The main purpose of the United Nations is to build up a world without war. A world based on cooperation of nations and peoples. I'm equally convinced that if we aim at right ends, right means should be employed.
More and more we live under a kind of regime of terror. Terror of what? Terror of some kind of catastrophe, like war descending upon us, some kind of disaster when nuclear weapons are used, and the future of the world's survival is in peril. I am no man of wisdom. I am only a person who has dabbled in public affairs for nearly half a century. Learned something from them, and mostly that I have learnt is how wise men often behave in a very foolish manner. In ages long past, a great son of India, the Buddha, said that the only real victory is one in which all are equally victorious, and there is defeat for no one. In the world today, that is the only practical victory. Any other way will lead to disaster.
Truth is not confined to one country or one people. It has far too many aspects for anyone to presume that he knows all. And each country and each people, if they are true to themselves, have to find out their path themselves, through trial and error, through suffering and experience. Only then do they grow. We in India have sought to formulate the principles which should govern our relations with other countries, and have often spoken of them as the 5 principles. What are these 5 principles? Panchasheel. They are very simple. The first one is the recognition by the countries of their independence and each other's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. The second one is non-aggression. The third is non-interference with each other. The fourth is mutual respect and equality. And the fifth is coexistence.
Our policy is neither neutral in that sense, nor passive. It is an active, positive policy, in favor of peace, holding on to certain objectives and ideals, and trying in a friendly way and in a small way to influence events. We don't imagine that we can make a terrible lot of difference, but sometimes when things are in a balance, even a little tells.
Bandung proclaimed the political emergence in political affairs of over half the world's population. Peaceful coexistence and non-alignment does not mean passivity of mind or action, lack of faith or conviction. It does not mean submission to what we consider evil. It is a positive and dynamic approach to such problems that confront us. We believe that each country has not only the right to freedom, but also to decide its own policy and way of life. We call ourselves non-aligned countries. The word non-aligned may be differently interpreted, but basically it is used with the meaning of being non-aligned with the great power blocks of the world. Non-aligned has a negative meaning, but if we give it a positive connotation, it means nations which object to lining up for war purposes to military blocs, to military alliances, and the like. We keep away from such an approach, and we want to throw our weight in favor of peace. Millions of people believe in what is called capitalism. Millions also believe in communism. But there are many millions who are not committed to either of these ideologies. and yet seek friendship with others, a better life, and a more hopeful future. We did not come to the Soviet Union as strangers, for many of us have followed with deep interest the great changes and developments that have taken place in this country. We are neighbor countries, and it is right that there should be a feeling of neighborliness and friendship between us for the mutual advantage of both our countries and our people. I believe also that this friendship is good for the larger causes of the world, and more particularly for the most vital cause of all, the peace of the world. I saw in the Soviet Union mighty tasks undertaken and many accomplished. I saw that the field of cooperation between our two countries was rich and wide. Your Excellency's visit to India will undoubtedly help in this process of deeper understanding and cooperation. Let our coming together be because we like each other and wish to cooperate, and not because we dislike others and wish to do them injury. Let us also plan for the peaceful cooperation of different countries for the common good and elimination of war.
इस पुराने जमाने को सोचकर जब आप हम और हजारों लाखों
When I think of the old days, how all of us here and hundreds of thousands of our countrymen, together how we toiled, soaring high sometimes, in the depths of despair sometimes, and succeeded in spite of innumerable difficulties with a single desire in our hearts and all our strength behind it to complete our work. We shall never forget that day when India attained freedom after a long and hard struggle and great sufferings. A fresh wind began to blow again across the country, and we decided to devote all our energies to build a new and prosperous India so that the people could move forward and strengthen the nation.
महात्मा पूरे दिखाई जाएंगे।
सर विच हैव एक्सप्लेन, अगर आपकी अच्छी तरह उभारनी है, और मेरा पॉइंट है कि साथ साथ और चीजें दिखाई जाएं, ताकि क्योंकि रिमोट
ये रोकी गई है रिमार्केबल, जो सब में अच्छी हमारी फिल्म सब रोकी गई। We are being stressed that there is something. I don't see any way out of your doing it. I realize that. I don't quite like it, where it will lead to. What are we to do? Now, apart from this, what are we to do about this? I must see.
India was rightly regarded the country which stood for peace. We had become standard bearers of peace in the world. But weakness goes ill together with peace. Peace can be secured by strength and endeavor, and not by complacency. That way alone can peace be secured in the world, and our voice can be heard with respect. The government of India is determined to seek all peaceful avenues of settlement of the Sino-Indian differences on the border question, while taking necessary precautions against the repetition of the events of October-November 1962. It continues to follow the policy of non-alignment, peaceful coexistence, and development in peace and freedom. I invite all of you, to whatever religion or party or group you may belong, to be comrades in this great struggle that has been forced upon us. I have full faith in our people and in the cause and in the future of our country. Jai Hind.
First of all, I've lived my life, a very large part of it. Secondly, it is occasionally frustrating and all that, but generally it's a satisfying life. That is, satisfaction really comes when one can fit in one's thought with one's action. I was never quite so satisfied in that sense as in the days of our struggle for independence. And especially in the early days, I was younger too, and I forgot everything almost, including my family, everything. I saw them, I took them for granted, I forgot them. I was in a state of, shall I say, a queer state of mind, concentrating on one thing. And it's like an arrow from the bow, it goes straight. That, of course, that particular aspect lessened, but to some extent it remained. It has remained.
Mahatma Gandhi had said of him, "When I am gone, Jawaharlal Nehru will speak my language."
I have received so much love and affection from the Indian people that nothing I can do can repay even a small fraction of it. To my innumerable comrades and colleagues, I owe an even deeper debt of gratitude. We have been joint partners in great undertakings and have shared the triumphs and sorrows which inevitably accompany them. A small handful of my ashes should be thrown into the Ganga. The Ganga has been to me a symbol and a memory of the past of India, running into the present and flowing on to the great ocean of the future. And though I have discarded much of past tradition and customs, and am anxious that India should rid herself of all shackles that bind and constrain her, and divide her people, and suppress vast numbers of them, and prevent the free development of the body and the spirit, though I seek all this, yet I do not wish to cut myself off from the past completely. I am proud of that great inheritance that has been and is ours, and I am conscious that I too, like all of us, am a link in that unbroken chain which goes back to the dawn of history in the immemorial past of India. That chain I would not break, for I treasure it and seek inspiration from it. The major portion of my ashes should, however, be disposed of otherwise. I want these to be carried high up into the air in an aeroplane and scattered from that height over the fields where the peasants of India toil, so that they might mingle with the dust and soil of India and become an indistinguishable part of India.